Empathizing with testers helps a beta test manager build trust. It means that a test manager will understand the tester's problems and pain points. It also means that testers understand the test manager cares. On this episode of Launch with Confidence, I have a new parent who learned about the power of empathizing in beta. Dylan LeMay runs the beta program at Nanit, a smart baby monitor system that tracks and analyzes your baby's sleep to provide insights and tips for better sleep quality. In this episode, we discuss how empathizing with beta testers allows you to connect deeper and get better results from beta testing.
We could talk with users. We could see how they use our products. We can ask them how they feel. But until we've felt what they felt, you won't really begin to actually experience empathy, because that's what empathy is, right?
Where beta testing fits in an organization?
But I would say, for me, that beta should live in multiple places. I think it should be involved along every part of your development and your product cycle, your development cycle.
And Dylan's plans for scaling his program.
One of the things I did recently is I made test plan templates and stuff like that, so they can fill those out, what their requirements are, and I can tell them what my requirements are, what their recruitment criteria is, what stuff they're trying to test, an overview of their tests, or what they want to learn from the tests, things like that.
Let's get into it. Today, I'm joined by Dylan LeMay. Thank you so much for coming on, Dylan. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So the first, we had met probably like a couple months ago at this point. I don't even know how long it's been.
Yeah.
But we got chatting a little about connectivity and testing different products with our own products. So you're the beta program manager for Nanit. And I'd love to get your take. So everything is smart and everything's connected now. What is the importance of testing in different environments with different testers, different people?
Yeah, it's huge. I'll just say a little bit about Nanit. We have for those who don't know, we have a smart monitor that basically uses computer vision to monitor the crib, and we have a huge feature set beyond that too. But part of the difficulties of that is testing in so many different environments with different babies is, they don't make babies like one size, and they don't make, everybody uses, a bunch of different types of, wearables with their babies. One user might use footed pajamas, while another might use like a quilted sleep sack, if they're in a colder environment. And that can really, with on the computer vision side, it can really affect, how we test, and we might find issues or bugs, or might even get feedback from users based on, what they're dressing their baby in, how they have their crib set up. Crib setup's really big. So if you're, I know you told me that you have kids. I have a 1-year-old. For me, and it was big in the U.S., and it kind of changes based on country too, but usually you have a baby who starts in a bassinet when you bring them home, and they're right close to the bed, so you're there at night so you can feed them and change their diaper. And as they get older, they go to a crib. Some users might not use a standard crib size. Some users might use pack and play. Some users might use there's a really fancy one that some people have called the snoo, which is like a vibrating bassinet. And there's all that stuff in between. And one thing is, it's really easy to get users with all those different environments, but it's there's so many different environments to test. You got to make sure that you have enough users so you don't miss one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you just explained. So we had the same thing. We had a bassinet that we put next to our bed.
Yeah.
We had, at the time, I think it was either a Wise or a Blink camera attached to it, and it was directly attached. It was something very cheap. And then we had our pack and play downstairs, and then we had our mini crib in the kids' room, and they would migrate between them. So we had cameras on each one of those things because we weren't always directly with the baby while they were sleeping. We're full enclosed upstairs, and this was just something to monitor them. And what's funny is when I first asked this question, I was thinking networking, there's going to be different networks and home types. There's going to be brick houses, versus, wood and stucco, and
Yep.
there's going to be all these different environments, and you threw in there's hot and cold, which is going to dictate what your baby's wearing.
Yep.
Sometimes your kids are just in their diapers because it's 100 degrees outside, and sometimes they're wrapped in one of those crazy little swaddle blankets,
Yep.
and they can't move anywhere.
Yep.
So that is a wildly different. I did not anticipate
Yes.
all those different environments that you have to test in.
I just got off a call. I interview testers sometimes, so I get to talk with them, get to know their experience, how they, use Nanit, and this particular tester was using a rolling bassinet. So there's within the category of bassinets themselves, there's also a bunch of different types of bassinets. And like you said, a lot of it is going to be different. And especially in the U.S., there's 100-year-old houses, there's new construction, there's wood studs, there's aluminum studs. I mean, I remember my parents' house I grew up in, my room was a complete dead spot for Wi-Fi. And I remember trying to get internet connection to that room, but a 100-year-old house, it would not happen. And people run into that all the time. Some people have huge houses. Some people live in apartments. That can be a big thing when it comes to sound. Like for one of the devices that we make, one of the products is a sound machine and a nightlight. And a user might have way loud, if they have loud neighbors living in an apartment, might use a way louder white noise rather than someone like me who lives out in a more rural area who it's like dead quiet at night. Everybody, I mean, if you really thought about it, I mean, I'm guessing there's millions of different setups and stuff like that. So it's definitely a challenge for sure, but it's super important. It's one of the biggest things that challenges that comes to mind in my job here for sure.
Yeah. It's what's funny is it's not even just a setup, right? Like it changes.
Oh yeah.
Based on situations. You described a sound machine. Like we have a sound machine in my kids' room, and we will change that thing because sometimes our neighbors are being a little bit loud. We're in a not a crazy area, it's a very suburban area, but sometimes our neighbors are doing something and it's a little loud, so we'll boost it up a little bit to drown them out. And then sometimes it's really quiet, and we don't want to be blasting the sound machine for whatever reason, so we'll turn it down. Sometimes they want a different sound because maybe they don't like certain ones, but there's always when you talked about if they're wearing different clothes, it's not like they're wearing one pair of clothes the entire time. It's going to be different between summer, it's going to be different in fall, it's going to be different in winter,
it's be different night to night.
It could be different night to night. And you can't replicate those things, right? Like you can't replicate those things inside of a lab or in the office, right? Like it has to kind of come from the user base. Oh man.
That's the importance of beta. That's the importance of beta. That's why, we do what we do, is because you can't replicate like a real user in a real environment, and you can't replicate the millions of environments that users have in all the different setups they have.
Yeah. It's all not just it's setups, it's the configurations, it's the tech that's around them, it's like what they're integrating with. Because I'll tell you, especially in a situation where you're trying to monitor your baby, and if you're getting alerts or it's waking you up, and I'll tell you something. After 3 kids, there's some times where you're a little more testy at night, right? Like you might be a little more on edge because you haven't slept in a week. And maybe a bad alert, or for example, like we would hear crying, and we try to bring up our camera, and this wasn't a Nanit, but we wouldn't be able to connect to it, and I'd have to go into the room and reset it, unplug it, plug it back in. And it's just like this is the worst thing that could happen in the situation. Like it's not helping me any bit. It's actually adding more friction to me.
Yeah, and that's exactly the experience that we want to avoid. Like that's huge amount of friction for users, especially to talk about your specific situation. There's sometimes if they're having some kind of connectivity issue, maybe it's quiet and their baby's sleeping and they can't connect to their camera, and they got to go in and tiptoe You ever, if you've been in that situation, that can be something that is like not a great experience for a user.
Oh
And
yeah.
they're, that's anxiety about waiting. The whole point is to, make sure they get sleep and make sure that they sleep better and they're confident in it. So those are the kind of experiences that we want to avoid, and that's again why we test all those different kinds of environments.
Yeah, definitely. And here's another one. I'll throw one at you because I
Okay.
was test. We just got a new air purifier installed into our kids' room.
Hmm.
So the air purifier is in the ceiling, and on the wall there's a switch, and the switch detects like the air pollution and all that stuff. And on
Yeah.
there is a little LED light, right? And like, I knew this about my routers and my modems because it's in my room, and I make sure to turn those off because it's like obnoxious to me.
Hmm.
It's something that now I pay so much attention to when I put in the kids' room because it's dark in there. My kids' room is pitch black. I have blackout
Yeah.
curtains. I want them to sleep, and I couldn't turn off this LED, and it was lighting up the room, right? Not that I know that not every user is going to necessarily care about that, right? But it put me
Hmm.
into a new perspective. Like, I do care about this, but only in this situation. If it was downstairs, I'd have no problem with it. If it wasn't directly in my kid's room, I wouldn't care as much.
Oh yeah. We put on our Nanit Sound and Light there, the status LEDs are on the bottom, and they shut off
Oh,
very quick just to avoid that specific situation that you're talking about. And you have to completely flip the device upside down, that because you have so much light pollution, you get wait it's the exact a situation you said. If it's a blackout curtain, baby's sleeping, those things are going to wake them up.
oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
there's a ton of like little things that could set off movement and stuff like that. So understanding like how can we find, I'll bring up a specific case. We had like a tester who was getting motion notifications, and they had a dehumidifier, and it was the mist from the dehumidifier was causing. It's like, that's something that we need to consider. That, like, how do we educate users on how do we make sure that they have a perfect setup? It's something that we put in the app during setup, so they can set up their crib position. When you onboard with Nanit, you get a crib position, and then you have like a movement zone, and you can set that stuff up ahead of time. And then a lot of it's, especially with computer vision, and we use fiducials and stuff like that to measure the breathing motion monitoring for babies. Like making sure that setup is perfect is important to a positive user experience. And
Yeah.
there's so much stuff that could go wrong. That's why you want to test it before you send it to tons and tons of people.
Yeah. So how does the data flow from so your testers are going to test in all kinds of situations, like whether or not they have a humidifier on, whether or not babies are wearing certain clothes. How does that flow into your team? Like, is that going to the product team, or is there like a data analytics team that
Right.
really slices and dices the data? How does it get back into the product development?
Yeah. Depends on the type of testing that we're doing, but in that situation, we have a data analytics team, and then we get feedback from users. I send that right to the product team and the dev team. They get to see all that feedback.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they then take that in and
mixture of both, I'd
they'll
say.
make that decision on how they're going to change the product or improve it
Yeah, and
or
they'll analyze that. They'll see, is this something that is an issue with the setup, or an issue with, maybe we're making a new wearable. So Nanit makes wearables that the baby wears around their chest, and that's how we measure uh, 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 breathing motion. And
Mhm.
uh, the if there's a problem with how it's maybe designed or stitched up, or maybe it's too tight here, maybe we can just we'll utilize the data, the analytics team, or the data analytics team on the AI side to understand that better. And then we'll go and make the decision. Maybe we can loosen up this stitching over here, and we have a whole textiles team that does that stuff too, which they're great. It's a lot of moving parts, man, for sure.
I imagine they get hooked on it too. Like, I could have access to, like, so there's a situation where, okay, our product works well with this. We've tested this. Now we need to get some different users, different environments, do they
Yeah.
come to you with like, hey, I need to find people that are unique or different in this way to see
Oh, yeah.
what their take is? Like, does that influence the way you recruit or find people for testing?
Oh, for sure. The big thing on the Nanit side is getting different uh, age groups of babies, because that's, I mean, just going back to the different environments thing. Babies are a newborn baby is way different from a 1 year old baby. It
Oh
seems
yeah.
pretty obvious, but a newborn baby is also completely different from a 4 month old baby who's rolling over.
Yeah.
They're completely different. They could be completely different in size. You could have if it was like my kid, when my son was 3 months old and wearing 6 month old footed pajamas. They get real big really quick depending on the baby. And uh, recruiting different age groups is really hard, I would say. That's the big thing. That's usually what the team is asking me for. We need babies of different age groups, and the newborn side is one that's difficult to recruit for. So recruiting is probably my biggest challenge, because babies
Yeah.
also, as you know, you might have like you did a podcast with a beta program manager who was doing GPUs. I think we talked about this before, but gamers, are using their GPUs in gaming almost all the time. A baby usually grows up, you know, so
They're
they'll
only
age
that
out
age
of the
for that for that little period of time.
yeah. So that's how long you have
Oh man.
that parent and that baby to help you test.
Yeah,
Eventually
that's
they
funny.
grow up, and you need to recruit more younger babies. So that's really the big thing. And it's definitely
I,
difficult.
I could imagine keeping that community like replenished, right? Like there's this idea of, say you were to build your community, you have say 5,000 people,
Yeah, yeah.
and say 20% of them are newborns. They're only that for 3 months,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yep.
6 months, and then they're moving into the next bracket. It's like, well, now I
Yep.
got to go find the newborns because they all just move back up this way, and then
Yeah.
there's people that age out and all this fun stuff. So it's a whole different complexity to recruitment.
Yeah. I'm recruiting like once a week, like new testers, basically.
Ooh,
And
I like it. So
I've
puts an emphasis on actually having that community, right? Like actually
oh yeah,
having
huge.
something that you're pushing out and constantly in finding new people that could fit the criteria.
Oh yeah. And I've automated, or at least semi-automated, a lot of the recruiting, just to get users in the pipeline to see who wants to test.
Mm.
Catch them when they bring home their babies and they're from the hospital, because it's such a difficult thing to find. Not just, if you remember when you brought your firstborn home from the hospital, you must have been, what did we do? What am I doing? Why they send me home with this baby without any manual? You know, um,
Yeah.
there it's difficult to find those kinds of users and get enough of them, because they age out
Yeah.
so quick.
All right. I couldn't. That's a whole lot to lift. So
Oh
the
yeah.
the next question I had for you was in terms of, and this will work really well. We share something in common with your users. We both have children, so we get a special, like a context when we're reviewing their feedback, right? So we can look at it and say, I understand. I felt this pain. Yeah, my kid too was not sleeping, and there's a
Hmm.
lot of situations where that empathy is really helpful when running a program. So how do you feel like what do you feel the connection is between having empathy with your users and actually running your beta program and Nanit?
Yeah. Yeah, before when I started with Nanit, and I was running the beta here, um, we didn't, my wife and I didn't have kids yet, so it was definitely like trying the one of the big hurdles for me was trying to understand the user experience. How are they feeling? Why are they saying this? And you know, where do I go from here? Or like, what do I do with this feedback? How do I classify this? How do I categorize this? And it's just because I didn't have the frame of reference, the you know I you can only really truly understand a user once you've been the user, and you can't really understand what it's like to be a parent until you are a parent. And that's what we make this product for, not just for babies but parents too, so they can sleep. And that's what Nanit's all about. We can, we could talk with users, we could see how they use our products, we can ask them how they feel, but until we've felt what they felt, you won't really like begin to actually experience empathy, because that's what empathy is, right? Like we could say, oh, I'm sorry about that experience. Empathy is saying, I've been here, I've been in your shoes, I know how you feel, I know what it's like when you run into this moment or this problem, or you have this pain point. And now that I am a dad, I feel like my eyes are completely open to a completely different frame of reference and world. So it's made me better at my job. It's made me a better person, obviously. And it's made me a better beta program manager here for sure.
Yeah. And then being able to assess something, this is like a weird way to put it probably, but to review feedback, to be able to feel that feedback and then communicate that to your team, because there's a gap, right? Like these customers and their problems aren't going directly to developers, or sometimes a product manager may interview them, but you're getting this fire hose of feedback, and you get these stories that you can then go translate to your company. And that's powerful, right? Like being able to say like, no, this is an absolute problem. Like maybe the developer doesn't have a kid, maybe, and they're saying like, this isn't an issue. And it's like, no, this is a problem for a parent who hasn't slept in 3 weeks and a kid that's going through something that's real tough. Like this is a problem. You may not think it is, but
yeah, you'll know what you get to learn sort of like what what a parent goes through this, like day one when you bring your child home. So it's a learning experience that you have to go through in order to truly understand. There's very few like opportunities like that in life to or experiences like that where you have to be in the arena doing it in order to truly understand it. Trying to understand where the parent's at, and trying to take, say they send you an email where you don't get so much emotion through an email. You don't understand what the user's feeling, why it's important to them. They'd say, this is really important to me. Why is it really important? What are you doing? What is a parent usually doing at this time of night using this feature, using their Nanit monitor to be able to get their baby down and asleep, so they can continue sleeping and they can wake up and have a positive day and have a positive experience. It's very, very, very important.
Where does the beta program live at Nanit, and where do you think it should be inside a regular organization?
So I would say for Nanit, it lives in product, and this is my first. I've done beta coordination and beta management, beta testing for other companies, and this is my first time doing beta testing in a product department. And it's been eye-opening because when you are testing and running beta tests, you're always talking with a product person or some kind of business analyst or product manager. And this is my first time actually like seeing behind the scenes and getting a little bit of like product and user research. And so I've been lucky to have to do support in my life, do customer support. I've been lucky to do QA, and now I'm or QA testing, and I'm super lucky to do product now here at Nanit, because it's such a unique experience. Where I think it should live is a hard one, because it really depends probably on what you're testing and how your team works. But I would say for me that beta should live in multiple places. I think it should be involved along every part of your development and your life, your product cycle, your development cycle. Because I really sort of just have my hand in multiple buckets here. I'm talking with dev daily. I'm talking with product daily. I'm talking with customer support Before stuff goes to production, I'm talking to them. When stuff is in production, they want to know how to use stuff, or they're running into issues, or maybe there's stuff we missed. I'm talking to them, trying to understand how we missed it. I'm also talking with marketing quite a bit. I get to converse with them, and they help me recruit testers. Sometimes, so I can get we have a community that are just normal Nanit users, and they help get we help get good community or active community members into the beta so they can help us test. I talk with almost every team, which is kind of fun because like not many places are. Sometimes I feel like in the past on beta I've been kind of siloed, and here it's like, go for it, Dylan. You can execute if whatever you need to execute this, grab your shovel and get it done. So
Yeah.
I'd say it probably should live somewhere in between your R&D teams and your CS and marketing teams. I know that hopefully that's not like a cop-out answer, but that's kind of where I exist.
Well, what you hit on was important. It's like as you serve each of these teams, sometimes there's not that central resource, right? So there's plenty of companies out there do not have a centralized beta program. They may run beta tests, but it's kind of ad hoc, right? So it's up to other people. So that could be someone from support or someone from QA or a product person or a researcher that needs to find a way to do testing.
Yeah.
Which means that it tends to form the program around that person's needs or that department's needs. So if you stem from QA, you get less of the things that are like, you're not going to see as many surveys that are more about the experience. You're going to see less about the interface and the UX of everything.
Yep.
And if you're in support, you're definitely going to be on the focus on the bugs and issues that would have come out if that was the case. But if you're from UX, you're probably deprioritizing things like the bugs and the support related items. So I think it's true that having something centralized is very, very beneficial. But as companies are maturing, right, like as they're starting up, they need to have that. Maybe I need to start finding some stakeholders. Maybe I need to start finding some people that are also going to use this data so they could shape their program to be more well-rounded than just some function for one team at the company. Because like you said, it covers marketing, support, QA, engineering, product, UX, like you name it. It's your users using a product before launch.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I think I'm blessed to be in that kind of demand, too. And I think I kind of thrive in that environment where I'm constantly jumping from thing to thing and like getting stuff done, because I thrive. I have good rapport with people here at Nanit, and I'm very lucky to, touch so many different departments, and I get to learn so much more. It's such a great learning experience. I'm so lucky. I've never done some UX stuff before I started here, and now I'm starting to like really understand the principles and translate that better into my beta, how we test here at Nanit. So, I think it should live everywhere. I think it's important to every company to understand their users and the way and understand their products and how users are going to interact with them before they send it out or before they launch a product. And if they're not doing that, they're going to fall behind.
Yeah, definitely. Like I hear from a lot of people where they struggle to get buy-in from different teams because they haven't seen the value, right? So they're not realizing the value yet. But if you're able to show marketing, like here's data that I have, or here's information or access that I have, that could,
we do stuff like that a lot too. Like, here's what users have said about it. Here's what you can expect. Here's the kind of language that they're using. Can you use that in your day to day? And they help me too. Like I said, they help me recruit users. So
that's my favorite part about the whole thing. When I worked at Western Digital, my thing was like, I did marketing for the beta program, right? So like I would go build connections with the marketing folks. I loved it. I'd go get, they would give me like, I'd get swag from events that like, oh yeah, we didn't use this swag. We have this merch. I'm like, can I have it? I'd
Yeah.
love to get it off to some testers, and like we could get them excited about stuff. And I would always like be bargaining with different teams. And it's like, that's such a un, I don't see it happen often. So there's a lot of programs that I see that don't focus on that internal marketing of their program and saying, here's how we're helping the company. Here's what I could do for you. Here's what you might be able to help me with.
Yep.
And that's how you grow your program, right?
Yes, and that's something that is definitely like my main goal this year is to that internal marketing, trying to like really make sure like there's as much buy-in as possible and that we can scale and give more feedback, better feedback, find more bugs, do the things that we need to do and grow with the company. It's such an important thing.
I'd love to hear a little bit more. Like, so do you set goals for yourself about how you're going to grow your program? Like, I know you said you want to do more, you want to get more things,
Mhm.
do better. Like what kind of goals are you setting for building or scaling your program?
Yeah. I think, here at Nanit, I think a lot of probably beta program managers are probably like this. And from what I've listened to on your podcast, it seems like it's like this. I'm a team of one, so being as efficient as possible and getting as much numbers is really a big thing. I need to get numbers around some stuff. So one of the things I'm doing is we're testing. I'm actually testing this right now. Is adding a ticketing system. So any sort of feedback, bug reports, the version numbers, firmware version numbers can be tracked based on what kind of feedback and bug reports they are. I had mentioned before we're sort of like automating or semi-automating recruitment efforts. So I'm sending like emails based on the baby's or a user's baby's age and their location and things like that. I'm sending it at a specific time. That way I can get users with young babies into the beta program and testing our stuff. And generally I'm just trying to like create tools and stuff to better help product managers and dev and people who want to test stuff get me the information that I need quickly, and that way I can better plan and better collaborate with them. So like one of the things I did recently is I made test plan templates and stuff like that, so they can fill those out, what their requirements are, and I can tell them what my requirements are, what their recruitment criteria is, what stuff they're trying to test, an overview of their test, or what they want to learn from the tests, things like that. Or is how I'm going to scale. We really just need to add the recruitment again is like the biggest hurdle for me for sure, I would say.
Can imagine that ends up as a lot of the goal
Yeah.
It's not even like you could say like I want to grow the community to like 10,000 people, because like those 10,000 people could again age out. So
Yep.
it's like you have to have a constantly moving, like I need to have this number of these different ages, right? Or these brackets, or we have personas or
Yep.
segments, whatever we're working on. It's like you have
Yep.
to constantly be nurturing and growing and aging people out
Yep.
of these parts.
Yeah, you can imagine. I have to ask you, do you know any other beta program that's like that? Because this is my first time here to kind of doing that, where we have people who slowly get older and they age out.
There's definitely products that are age based. Like there's a lot of senior citizen products
Mm,
that will have versions of that.
yeah.
There's also a lot of teenage focused products that have that.
Hmm.
I don't see it as often. It's definitely not like a common occurrence, but there are very temporal products too. Um, I'll tell you one that's like the opposite, like
Okay.
new beds, right? So when you're testing a smart bed, right?
Okay.
How often are people getting beds? How often are people in the market for beds? Like that, you have a bed for a very long time. So the time that like trying to
Mm,
find someone that's in the new market, like when you build that community, that tester already has the bed, right? Like they have the bed, and they're not necessarily going to be a great new tester because they have it, right? So
Right.
having to replenish that in that same vein, and it's usually like big purchases like that, cars, big appliances are not as frequent to have constantly nurturing, right?
Mhm.
Now you
Right.
do have product updates like that happens, but usually for like a large appliance, like it's for years, right?
But
For
yeah.
yours, it's for years, but very few years.
Yeah. Months in some cases, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially if they come in at a later age bracket, right?
Yeah.
Like they're gone real quick.
Yeah. We're lucky too to have really I mean, I really got to shout out my Nanit's testers because they're some of the best group of testers that I've worked with. They're for what they're testing. You know, a tester is testing unstable software sometimes, or testing unstable products, and they're reporting stuff, or they're seeing features and products that are in their their infant stage. Their babies. The products themselves are babies when you think about it, and um, they're very very forgiving. They want to improve Nan's products. They want to see like features that help benefit them. They want to see they want to give us feedback. They want to give us feature requests. They want to fix these bugs.
Yeah,
And we're very like we have some testers who have been testers for a long time. You know, they start with their first baby, and as they have more, they buy more Nanit products. They buy another Nanit monitor. Um, those are really cool because I get to grow with them here at Nanit, and I get to see like them grow as a family from my side and understand how they get, and they also get to see Nanit grow too, which is really cool.
yeah, yeah. Best customers purchase more of your products, right? Like they end
Oh,
up being loyal to the brand and whatnot.
yeah.
It's funny. I have a lot of conversations like testers. It depends. Big brands don't tend to have a problem with testers, like you heard from the call with Intel and
Yeah,
AMD.
yeah,
Like finding someone to test gaming products is not very hard. Let me tell
yeah.
you, finding someone to test smart speakers is not very hard. The latest and greatest headphones is not difficult. TVs,
Hmm.
like those things aren't necessarily hard to find. And why it's so important that the people that you do find are the right people. So I get the question often of like, what's the incentive? Like I tell people like, okay, Beta Bound is a community that Centercode has,
Right.
right? It's a community of over, I think it's like 300 something thousand people. So it's a lot of people in this community. It's like, why do people test products? And we'd ask that question of that community, and it's for what you just suggested, right? Like it's that they have a voice and they can improve the products.
Hmm.
They have access to this company that they may be a big fan of. They may
Right.
really like the company, and they get their voice into something. And
Hmm.
there's just, it takes a certain type of person, right?
Hmm.
It's not that we're going to give them $5 and like, oh cool, $5 and I'll give you a survey, right? Like
Yeah.
that's not the community you want to build, right? So
Exactly.
the user testing and user Zoom and survey monkeys of the world, like if you want a survey, they got a community, they'll answer your survey. It may not be the best data that you get, it may not be the
Right.
most accurate data that you get, but
Hmm.
they'll get you answers for it. So in this case, like when you have a community of someone that's very invested in your product and willing to give feedback, that's the like juicy data that everyone in the company wants. You
Hmm.
have everyone trying to jump at it, right? Like marketing wants the information, sales wants the information. Like how do I get
Yeah.
more people to buy this, like this person? How do I get more people like this?
Yeah, it's huge. It's such like those types of testers are they can be elusive, but when you find them, it's like you can count. You can when you have a new feature release or you have any new release, you can count on hearing from them. And you guys start to get to know them, and if you're like me, maybe you get to interview them, or your colleagues will get to interview them, and you start to see them face to face too. And you develop like a professional relationship with them, and with Nana, it's so much more. It's so much more than that because it's their family. Like they're growing their family with their product.
Yeah,
It's lucky, and like I said, I think I'm blessed to work here
yeah,
and get to experience that because like I said, I became a dad like a year ago, and I get to live out that the exact same thing our users are living out, and I'm very lucky.
Still living it, man. One is
Yeah,
still, still rough.
yeah, it is.
I just got to, so I've got 13, 4, and 2.
Yeah,
And we're just getting to the point where the 2-year-old's actually starting to sleep through the night, and it's like feels like a whole new freaking world.
yeah.
I am far more rested than I've been for the last 4 years of my life.
That's good. Congrats. I got my son just turned 14 months today, and
Nice.
he's growing like crazy. He's like a bean sprout, man. He's just growing straight up.
It's really funny to see them grow. Like
Yeah.
my joke with my wife is like I could finally see my son's neck. Like before it was just like head and shoulders, like, and he
Yeah,
just kind of like waddle around, and
yeah,
then at some point like they just stretch out and they've got like you can actually see their like
yeah,
knobby little knees and elbows, and
yeah. That's what he's starting to develop knees. It's not just two sausages running around on the ground. It's you can see their bone structure. Yeah, it's crazy to see him grow. It's crazy, and that's that's the stuff that parents go through. You don't like really get that experience until you go through it.
yeah, definitely. All right, so I'm gonna end this off with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So I'm gonna rattle them off at you.
Okay.
First one: describe beta in 1 to 3 words.
Okay. Intense juggling act.
All right. Most challenging thing. Most challenging thing you can do in beta.
For me, recruitment, no doubt. But I'll give you a better one. Most challenging thing is uh, uh, most challenging thing is getting into contact with a parent. I would say catching them at the right time. You know.
I imagine that is a thing.
Yeah.
You got a window.
Yep.
Easiest thing to do in beta.
Uh, uh, Catch issues and gather vital feedback. I would say.
All right. One misconception about beta.
Uh, One misconception. Oh, man, sorry, this isn't very rapid fire. I would say.
I'll speed it up. It will be like we'll do a 1.5 speed. It'll be
Yeah. Okay. Good. I would say beta can't do everything. Some things. Some things you need to start before beta. Some things you sometimes you got to start with users. Start with users instead of testers, and understand. Try to discover their pain points. Sometimes we're talking about the tester. Sorry, this is not rapid fire. We're talking about the kinds of testers that you get, the ones that are like super users and really want to tell you everything about their experience with Nanit. Sometimes finding the quiet ones, understanding the ones that don't want to talk to you, or the ones that are upset. Those are the hard ones to talk to, and beta can't hit that.
Definitely. What's your favorite thing about beta?
My favorite thing is launching a product and seeing feedback that was gathered from beta testers or bug reports that were gathered from testers, and seeing it turned around in a quick amount of time, and seeing testers that sort of feedback and get turned into a product or a new release that is beneficial to a user. Yes, this is what I've been waiting for. I've been asking for this for years. Understanding like getting that like firsthand, because when you're testing beta, everything's hitting the beta testers first, and seeing it, and okay, when this goes to market, it's going to be a banger, and that kind of stuff. You get to see, like, you get that first little morsel. It feels good.
Yeah. All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee, black.
All right. Yeah. How do you unwind?
I read. I read at night after I have to put my son to bed. I'm always falling. I'm reading Kindle on my phone, and I'm always falling asleep with the phone on my face.
What are you reading now?
I just finished Dune because I wanted to watch the movies, and boy, that is a long book. That was like 850 pages, and the first 350 pages were the slowest burn of any book I've read.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get through. It's thick that first like
Lineages.
yeah. It's all like world building and character building, and then the actual story starts. Pretty crazy.
Oof.
But it was a very good book, better than the movie, I would say.
What are you watching right now? Are you watching any TV shows?
I'm gonna really show the fact that I have a 14-year-old or a 14-month-old, and say that I'm watching a lot of super simple songs on YouTube and a lot of Sesame Street. That's what mainly what's on the TV. I would say.
Stay up to date on Sesame Street. All right, best piece of advice that you've been given professionally.
Professionally, I would say one thing I would say is, I'm sort of like a perfectionist. When I don't do things well, I feel I don't do things well, or I feel I don't feel, I don't get things right. I can really beat myself up about it. The best advice I'm getting is and this goes for parenthood too, by the way, is to give yourself grace and give other people grace. That's, forgiveness, even to those who may not deserve forgiveness. And you need to forgive yourself, even if you think you don't deserve it. That way you can move on and grow. That's my best advice.
Feel it. All right, Dylan, thank you so much for joining the podcast. I really appreciate it. This was, I had a great time. It's definitely fun.
Yeah, man, I had a blast. Hopefully I can come back someday.
Yeah.